What's up, Nerfers, and welcome back to my channel, where today I'm taking a look at a brand new bolt action Nerf sniper called the Smiley. This blaster right here is designed by Mighty Shrub in collaboration with Mr. Heathpants, and it's sold by Out of Darts in the USA, who sent this one to me. I'll leave a link down below, and even if you're just after some Nerf darts or something like that, using that link down below does help support my channel, so check out those links in the description. Now, this being a 3D printed blaster, it is fully customizable with what colors you want it to be. I think there's 25 different colors, and as you can see, there's 3 different zones for where those colors end up on the blaster. Now, Smiley has quite a few standout features that I'll go over first. The biggest one of those for me is the fact it doesn't have a pistol grip like every other bolt action blaster on the market. Instead, it's gone for a more traditional rifle style grip here, which inside of that actually has the plunger. So when I pull back the bolt here, you can see it compresses the spring. You can actually see the bottom of the spring in the bottom there to know that it's cocked. And there's little side windows here where you can see the piston moving up and down. Now, by moving the plunger into the grip itself, not only does it look more like a traditional rifle, but it also helps reduce the size of the thing overall. So this is quite a short blaster compared to every other bolt action on the market. What that means is, for those of you who want to live out your Call of Duty fantasies of using a bolt action point blank, this has a far lower chance of knocking into walls and things like that as you navigate close quarters. At the bottom of this grip, there is the ability to quick swap your springs by simply pulling out a pin at the back. Out of Darts offer 4 different spring levels as well as spring spaces for this blaster. So by mixing different springs and different spaces, you're able to have a lot of versatility with the output of this blaster. Complementing the ability to quick swap your spring, there's also a quick swap barrel nut at the front. Just loosen that and your barrel pulls straight out. This blaster uses a 509 barrel, so US spec. It is a little bit looser for my rifling attachments to go on, so I would recommend adding a little bit of tape under there, which is why I'm not taking this off, because it was a bit of a pain to put on in the first place. But the rifling I'm using today is the ZWQ BCAR, which is sold by Out of Darts. So I have a link to that as well down below. At the bottom of the blaster, there's a pretty cool side press mag release, which is actually ambidextrous. I can press it from this side as well. But now we come to what is probably the biggest downside with this blaster, and that is the magazines that it takes. These are angled Worker Nightingale magazines, which means they only fit worker darts and similar length darts. You can't use dart zone darts, you can't use saber darts, because those are 38 mils in length. You can only use 36 mil darts, which are becoming a bit more of a scarcity these days, since 38 is more aerodynamic. Don't get me wrong, it is quite a unique look to have in your bolt action blaster, having an angled mag like that. Just not the most practical and doesn't allow us to use the most accurate darts on the market. So I will be using a mix of Worker 1 gram darts and Worker 1.2 gram darts today. Next up, let's talk about the trigger pull of the blaster. So there is a bit of slack there, then you hit a wall, and if I pull it any further at all, it will fire the blaster. It's actually quite a nice trigger overall for a 3D printed blaster. Can't really fault that component at all. Up top, you've got front and rear Picatinny rails for mounting any kind of sights that you want to put on there. I'm using a 1 to 4 times low powered variable optic from Novrich. I just think it completes the look of the blaster a bit, having a magnified sight on there, compared to my standard 1 times red dot sight that I would actually recommend for gameplay. Now, taking a look at the bolt handle itself, I've upgraded mine from the default plastic to this CNC metal one. And the reason I've done that is I am using Out of Dart's strongest spring in the blaster in combination with a spring spacer. So I don't want that part to snap in half. So I've gone to the metal one, which isn't that much more when you select it on Out of Dart's website. Something else that's pretty cool, if you are a left-handed user, you can actually undo a bolt at the back there and flip the lever arm around so that it's on the left-hand side of the blaster. That is not a feature that every other bolt action Nerf blaster has. I think the Kirin from memory does. I can't think of many others that do. Making our way now to the stock, it is nice and sturdy for a 3D printed blaster. The whole thing in general is incredibly rigid. There's hardly any movement to it at all. Tiniest little bit of flex on the stock there. But I've seen store-bought blasters that are way flimsier than that. So it's a brilliant job for a 3D printed one. At the back there, you've got ridges for added grip into your shoulder. But that pretty much wraps up my overview of the Smiley, so let's get on with some testing, starting with the Chrono Test. Okay guys, for the Chrono Test today, I'm starting out with the 1 gram worker bamboo darts. I've got 15 of those loaded up. Let's see what this blaster's shooting with the stronger spring plus a spring spacer. And the ZWQ BCAR attached on the front there. .231, 238, 241, 238, 242, 241, 244, 244, 241, quite consistent actually, 243, 234, 242, 245, 245, 235, and that's all 15 shots. Only got the 1 mag, so I've got to go quickly load this up with the worker heavies. Alright, 15 worker heavies. These are a little bit lighter than the normal saber darts I use. They're 1.2 grams instead of 1.3. But they should still go a little bit slower than the 1 grams just did. 225, 211, 210, 209, 215, 203, 214, 212, 209, 213, 209, 207, 217, 216, 212, and that's all 15 shots. Now keep in mind, this blaster I think does have a smaller air volume than some other bolt actions like the Worker Kunlun. It's not really competing against those though, because this is more of a close range blaster with its overall short length. Over the Chrono, standard 1 gram worker darts average 240 feet per second with a very consistent standard deviation of 4, while the heavier 1.2 gram version averaged 212 with a near identical consistency of 5. Now 240 with standard and 212 with heavies isn't going to compete with some high hitters like the Worker Kunlun or Kirin Type A who easily clear 300 FPS. But those blasters also aren't as small and compact as the Smiley, which is a trade-off. A lot of players around the world also compete at lower velocity limits, and the Smiley can be tuned anywhere from 140 FPS on the low end up to this 240 on the high end with the quick pull of a pin and inserting some spacers, which is a huge advantage that this has over other bolt action rifles by having the plunger in the grip. Anyway, given the incredibly consistent results with both dart types, I'm excited to see how accurate this is in the next test. Alright guys, accuracy test today will be from 30 meters away or 100 feet. Target, just for a refresher, is 1 meter in diameter. At the end, I'll give you a summary of how large the grouping was with both types of darts. I'll set the heavies down there because I will have to reload this singular mag that I've got in between, but I'll cut that out for you guys. I'll set my sight to 4 times magnification for full sniper mode. Let's see how this thing does with the ZWQ BCAR giving spin to the darts. That was nice and centered on the target. Same with that. A little bit higher, I think. Same with that. A bit more in the middle. bit more to the right. Bit more to the right. Bit lower, I think that one was. It's hard to tell from this range. You guys will have a much easier representation on your computer screens or phone screens. That one was a bit more to the right though. You can see that. Same with that. Worker darts, they're a bit dated at this point. I think this exact design's been out for like 5 or more years now. More modern darts like the Sabres are a bit more accurate. But being 38mm in length, they just don't go well in the Worker Nightingale mags. All right, I'll swap to the heavies now. And even with the heavies, I'm going to make sure that the tips don't rub against the inside wall of this mag. There's something about the Nightingale mags that even with these darts, they can sometimes jam up. All right, we've got 15 Worker heavies in there. Let's see if these do a little bit better since they are heavier darts. Aiming at the exact same spot, so we'll get a gauge on whether one would go further in theory as well. These seem to be going a little bit lower on the target. Which would indicate to me they might have a little less max range in this particular setup. Yeah, it's definitely going a bit lower with the Worker heavies. Will be interesting to compare the grouping though, because I haven't actually compared Worker heavies probably over a year. At least since Sabre darts came out, I haven't even bothered using these. Honestly, I think the 1 gram Workers are doing better. That's all of the shots. I don't really want to drive. Actually, can you even deprime this? Oh, you can. I hadn't even tried that so far. All right, guys, I'm going to head back inside and show you the results. From 30 meters away, both standard Worker darts and heavy Worker darts had similar size spreads of around 40 centimeters. However, the standard weight impacted higher up on the target than the heavies, despite aiming at the exact same spot. That tells me the standard weight Workers seem to have a flatter trajectory at normal engagement distances. So between the two, I'd pick the standard unless you're going for extremely long range. As far as groupings go, 40 centimeters is pretty good for Worker darts, though if this blaster took standard Telemags instead, I would have been able to use the most accurate Nerf darts I own, which are Sabre heavies, which I can imagine would have had an even smaller grouping size than this. But now for some final thoughts about the blaster. Okay guys, I've come straight from the accuracy test to give my final thoughts on this thing in the field while it's fresh in my mind. And what I've got to say is the Smiley lives up to its name. It is really fun to use and quite refreshing from a bolt action standpoint. This blaster does a lot that other bolt actions don't. So for example, it is really compact in size. Using this in an actual competitive game, you're not going to be relegated to the backfield, up in sniper towers and sitting at a distance. You can actually maneuver this through a close quarters environment. And although a bolt action isn't the most practical, it certainly doesn't have the rate of fire of something pump action, for example, you will be able to live out your quick scoping, close quarters, point blank headshot dreams of playing Call of Duty. The downside of the shorter length overall is of course the lower power, so it's not getting 300 plus like something like the Worker Kunlun or the Kirin, but it's not really competing against those blasters because it is offering a unique shorter option. Plus a lot of people play below 200 FPS anyway, so this is already shooting higher than you need it to. And it's only really here in Australia, maybe Singapore and a few other places, they're shooting 300 plus in our events anyway. Now I think the idea of being able to swap the lever to the left side for a lefty, being able to quick swap the spring, those are all things that a lot of other bolt actions lack. So this is absolutely feature packed. The designers behind this thing did a really great job. The only downside that I would say is the type of magazine they chose. Does look pretty cool and it has a nice click when it goes in, but these do not play well with more modern darts like AF Pros and Saber darts, which are a bit longer in length than workers that I use today. If you loaded up a whole mag full of them, they'd actually get jammed and would get stuck feeding about halfway down, and you'd be banging the bloody mag against your leg trying to get it to come up. Aside from that though, this is a really nice blaster. If you're considering picking it up, use the links down below to help support my channel. Even if you just want to top up on some ammo or pick up one of these ZWQ BCARs, I've got links for all of that down below as well. Anyway guys, that is all I have time for today. Like, comment, subscribe and all of that. Here's 2 other videos you might enjoy. And as always, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you on the next one.